What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golic Jr. That is me. With me, as always, super producer Brandon Newman, my father, Mike Golic Sr., and Dad, and really this applies to Brandon too. We have survived over here a morning full of Miss Rachel, as we are all enjoying some family time right now. I know Brandon's got his mom in town. Me and Dad are all at the house here in South Bend with my brother and his wife Jenny and their son Jackson, who's a 1-year-old now, newly minted 1-year-old, and we have been reveling in all of this kid content, and Miss Rachel's hit us upside the head the last couple of days. Dad, you seem particularly disturbed by this. As someone who's already been a parent, this seems like a new frontier for you.
Well, I mean, it's just every kid has something. You had Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You.
Oh, yeah.
That song, when her face was on the screen. You got, anytime we wanted 3 minutes of silence, we put that on. We had it on tape. Your show was Jungle Book. That when we put that on, you would be set. And while I say, oh man, I've had enough of this, I get it from a parent standpoint.
Sure.
I get it when Chris and I were young parents to you guys. You have to find something that calms the baby. And for Jackson, who had just turned 1 year old on Monday, it's Miss Rachel. And Miss Rachel is blowing up. Miss Rachel was just doing her own thing for her own kid. Next thing, she's on YouTube with barely any kind of production value, to now she's with CAA, one of the most powerful outfits out there as far as representing people. The production value change, you know she's going to go on tour.
Oh, yeah.
And she is going to make millions and millions of dollars.
Miss Rachel found her way to the bag. She has
did.
absolutely gone out here and hit people upside the head. But it's wild. It's just this never-ending loop of random sounds and songs for littles and, like you said, cartoons now to go along with it. Before it was just her rolling around in a park. But Brandon, I don't know. You got 2 kids under 3 right now. Have you encountered this woman at all?
Of course, I know Miss Rachel. It's not one of the things that my kids need to pacify themselves. I think I'm fortunate for that, honestly. They have a little bit of diversity in their palette. But Miss Rachel, I'm not sure how she'll do on tour because she's just a big, God level on screen. Hi, guys. There's 3 bubbles. 1, 2, 3. There's this, I don't know what that would do live on stage. She's not a big song person, but
she is a big song person.
She's a song person. She has people on the show that are song people. I'm going to tell you, her travel is going to be phenomenal because it's like The Voice. As soon as Jackson hears The Voice, he spins in and just stares at the TV.
I will say there won't be much crowd interaction because the kids just go into a trance. It's going to be weird because it's a largely silent theater with maybe some coos here and there.
But there's a new singer now as well. She's got and I don't know all the names. She has a wonderful voice. But I guess my point is every kid has something. And it's interesting with parents, what it is and how much you go to it, because you don't want to overindulge, right? You don't just want to sit your kid in front of the TV, but when you need that time, like you guys were into Barney, and then all of a sudden, because this is one thing, at some point it'll turn off. Jackson will look at the TV, see Miss Rachel, and go about his day and want nothing more to do with her. It's just, it's all kind of, you just work through the stuff. You guys did that with Barney. One day it was like you wanted no more in Barney, so all the Barney stuff went into storage or got given away, and we just moved on to the next thing.
But to me, it's not as much about, because you're right, kids are going to cycle through stuff. I am amazed at the parents' ability to tolerate these things on an endless loop. Like the amount of Paw Patrol Jake and Jenny have watched. And now Miss Rachel, where this is just constant background noise of a meter and cadence that most adults can't tolerate. But parents, it's like you become numb to low-grade poison over a long period of time.
You do. And at times you find yourself watching it when your kid is not.
Oh, yeah.
And then you catch yourself and you go, what the hell am I doing? I mean, Paw Patrol, I actually like Paw Patrol, so I would watch that. When you guys all went to go
Paw Patrol, by the way, way overfunded there. The military spending in Adventure Bay is out of control.
They can handle every situation. But when you guys went to see Taylor Swift in Vegas, it was me and Ben watching Jackson. This was a few months ago. We put him in front of Miss Rachel for about 20 minutes. And it was Ben, God love him, Ben, who played at Harvard, played with the Bears, is in med school right now, married to my daughter, Sydney. He goes, can't do it anymore. Yeah. He said, we turned it off. He goes, can't take her. Let's find another way to, entertain Jackson. Again, when you're a parent and you're with them all the time and you need those few minutes, I get it. But we were quickly like, no. Can't deal with looking at her mouth, forming the words, saying the words. We were losing our minds. But boy, does Jackson love it.
To me, all it really indicates is that the barrier for entry into the child content market is really low because it did not take much. This was a YouTube channel.
Yep.
And I have maintained, Dad, that you, who for so long were one of America's dads in morning radio, really need to start to tap into this market now that you're a grandparent.
I could do that, right?
This feels like a place where we just get you in front of a camera, we get someone to do some sing-song stuff, and you can be the delivery vessel for all of this kid content.
What could I be? Grandpa G?
Yeah.
I mean, what would it be? I need like a still to be kind of cool, even though I'm a grandpa. But yeah, I would like doing that.
I think it's just playtime with Pappy. I think by the way, trademark, that's intellectual property. If you steal that, we will sue you. We will get
after
litigious.
you with everything that we have.
So we'll brainstorm more of this off air so we don't give away the game right now.
Okay.
We've got a great show today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us that 5-star rating. Check us out on DraftKings YouTube and DraftKingsNetwork.com. Very fun one today. This content for the grown and sexy. Sam Hartman, Notre Dame quarterback, going to stop by. We got a chance to catch up with him yesterday.
Yeah.
This one, for everyone watching live, you'll get a portion of this podcast audience. We're going to release this as a two-parter, so you're going to get the full. We did about a half hour with Sam.
Long interview.
And
what a nice guy.
It's an incredible, and I say young man, he's going to be like 24 this fall.
Right.
And the main takeaway for me from the conversation, he reeks of the maturity
He does.
of a player with as much experience as he has. And the value that brings to a football team of what he understands about his process, leading a team, and being at the helm of an offense is really impressive to hear, and some of that will shine through certainly in the interview, but that's who you want leading the charge.
You really do, because when you hear the interview, you will see the maturity, because he admits how immature he was when he was a true freshman starter at Wake Forest, and he said, I basically had no business doing that. I wasn't ready for that. And then he got benched his sophomore year before he played more. So this was an 18-year-old, now a 24-year-old, and how he has grown has been great. And now to lead Notre Dame, it's a great individual to do that.
Yeah, so very excited for you to hear that conversation. Notre Dame fans, you can feel very confident your team is in very good hands. Dad, speaking of very good hands, though, last night, Major League Baseball, a thing happened. Yep. Normally, so far this summer, Major League Baseball has been full of tungsten arm Doyle stats from our dear sweet Shohei Ohtani, who continues to go out here and do freakish things that only Babe Ruth had technically done, but in a situation and context that is far more impressive to me than anything Babe Ruth ever did. Last night, we added another pitching accomplishment from somebody else. Domingo Germán tosses just the 24th perfect game in Major League Baseball history for the Yankees. They blanked the Oakland Athletics 11-0.
Right.
It's the fourth perfect game in Yankee history. And, Dad, just kind of emblematic of how weird baseball is, because Domingo Germán had also gotten tagged up, according to ESPN Stats and Info. He became the first player in Major League history to reach a perfect game after allowing 10-plus runs in his previous start.
You can find a stat anywhere, can't you?
That one's actually emblematic to me of how wild a roller coaster
I thought it was going to be the first perfect game after his last start was on a Tuesday night. What you could find
Elite
is amazing.
Stat.
But this is a guy who was suspended for the sticky stuff on his hand, tossed out of a game for that. His last start, as you mentioned, 10 runs. 8 of those were earned. His last 2 starts he gave up 15 earned runs, 15 hits in just 5 1/3 inning, and then he throws a perfect game. And he got a lot of help from his defense now. A lot of the balls were hit right at players. I'd imagine that if you're one of those guys in the field, man, as it's getting to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and the 9th inning went pretty quick. You had a couple of guys swinging at first pitches. But, man, you don't want to be that guy. Right in the field that because even if you make an error, while it could still be a perfect game, it's not. I mean, it'd still be a no-hitter. It can't be a perfect game.
Right. And I guess that's the thing is when you're a pitcher and when you're in it, because I always think about this in a lot of pressure situations. When it's you've got so much you're focused on, right? You're in communication with the catcher. You're trying to figure out your pitch sequences. You're going over scouting reports for what you've got for each batter. In the field, you got a lot more time to think, like especially with the pitch clock now. It's a little more get out there, get up and go. And so you're kind of in the zone. I know there's all the thought process of do you talk to a guy who's in the middle of a perfect game, how you approach him. But you're right. There's a lot of other people that have to make this go. And if I'm one of those dudes sitting out there picking dandelions in right field and all of a sudden it's my time to shine, that's where the knees can start to quiver a little bit.
Yeah, it's like when a quarterback's having a monster game, you don't want to be that old lineman that gets him smoked.
Yeah, it's 100%. These are all team efforts.
So I love doing this as well. 24 perfect games. The first two were in the 1800s. The first one was Lee Richmond from the Worcester Ruby Legs. Okay? He played in that.
Baseball does old, weird names better than any sport.
1880 to 1882, he played there. In 1880, June 12th, he pitched 74 of the 85 games. He pitched in 74 of the 85 games. Threw a perfect game. It wasn't called a perfect game then because it was the first one and they had no name for it. That was the perfect game. And then that was the first one. 5 days later was the second one. The second one was John Ward with the Providence Grays. So 5 days later was the second one. And the mound then was 45 feet, not what it is, 60 feet now. And then the third one, very recognizable name, 1904, Cy Young.
Amazing. You know what? Like it's hard. In that quick succession, apparently we have tremendously overrated the value of the perfect game in baseball. So, Dad, the perfect game coming up always revives the debate of what some of the actual hardest accomplishments in sports are to pull off. So, you've got 24 now perfect games in Major League Baseball history, like you said, going back to what was the first one in the 1800s?
1880.
So, you've got that. 319. This also, by the way, furthers my belief that no-hitters aren't actually that impressive.
There's like 300 some, right?
319 no-hitters in Major League Baseball history. So whenever it comes up, like I understand we celebrate that because sometimes those can be combined no-nos.
Yes.
All that never really actually impresses me.
The perfect game is the thing.
The perfect game is cool. It's got an identifiable name. It's nice and clean.
Yes, right.
All
it
of
is
that.
Very clean.
We chase perfection and we find it. But is it actually the most impressive thing that you can do? And so I pulled up a couple of others that are in the conversation for this. So in the NFL, you have got, I believe, 26 500-yard passing games by only 21 different quarterbacks. So you've got some guys with multiples there. And then in the NBA, there are only 8 players that have scored 70 or more points. Now, I think the major difference right off the bat looking at these is a perfect game pretty much guarantees you a win. You get a win every time. It's the most functionally useful when we talk about triple doubles, all these things. This one actually guarantees you a win versus in all of these other circumstances,
it does not.
You can go for that and it not necessarily be emblematic of how well the team is doing. So starting off, I would say of these things here, the perfect game is still the most impressive
because
to me.
It's perfect. You get the win. I completely agree. 8 players who have scored 70 or more: David Robinson, David Thompson, Elgin Baylor, Kobe Bryant, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard. So going back to like 2007, there's 3 from 17, and then there were 2 last year, right?
I would say we had 2 within a couple of months span this year.
It seems to me like in football and basketball, we are in an era where it can happen more, right?
Yeah.
NFL is a passing league right now. So I would expect that number to be going up. And in the NBA with the threes and the way so many threes are shot, that number is going to go up as well. I think perfect games are still, they go back the furthest as well, 1880. I mean, it's going back a long way and there's only 24 of them. So I still, and they all need help, right? In the NBA, you need your teammates to help you, whether it's setting screens, getting you the ball. Football, you need the O-line to help you. Obviously, you need your receiver to help you. And in baseball, obviously, the pitcher needs the defense behind him.
Well, in theory, that's the one that you could also do the most by yourself.
With the strikeouts,
like
exactly
you could just go 27 Ks and call it a day, which would be some wild stuff. But, at the end of the day, I think overall that one probably takes the cake for that one. At Gojo Show on Twitter, if you disagree at all. Are you looking up right now most strikeouts in a perfect game?
I am.
I would be very curious because obviously that would be on the higher end of things. Was it Matt Cain's perfect game?
It says 12 strikeout. I don't know. I'd have to dive a little more into this.
All right, we'll get stats and info on this one.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I do think that it is particularly funny in its own way that...
Sorry.
Oh.
On May 13th, 1952, while pitching for the Class D Bristol Twins, Ron Nasia tossed a no-hitter, striking out 27 in 9 innings.
I mean, Class D. Do we count that even?
Yeah. I don't. It's just I went perfect game. I should have said perfect MLB game.
Yeah, perfect MLB game.
Yeah.
Like, I guess carving people up that, like if you're coming back from an injury or something like that could be pretty cool. I don't know if it counts the same.
Yeah, I don't know if it either. I'm not sure. I got one here that, who was it? Kane retired, tallied 24 strikeouts, tied for the most strikeouts in a perfect game with Sandy Koufax of the Dodgers in 1965.
Okay, so Matt Cain. All right.
Yeah, 14 strikeouts, he and Sandy Koufax. I'm not sure how old, again, this is, but that's where we are. So if we're wrong, someone will obviously let us know.
Yeah, no, we're pretty good at that.
Yep.
Speaking of someone admitting that they've been wrong or things haven't been going well, the irony of this happening on the same day that Steve Cohen with the Mets had to have the sad boy press conference because things have been going real sideways for them, decided to have a press conference because Steve Cohen's been very public. He's been very front-facing as an owner in a way that for a while has been very appealing to fans, right? He's been a guy that we've seen tweeting through it on the timeline in the past with his team, and this offseason willing to go out and spend a ton of money to give the Mets one of the highest payrolls in Major League Baseball, and now sitting here underperforming largely through the course of the season, he felt like he had to come and finally step forward and say really a whole lot of nothing, basically got up there and talked for 23 minutes and
but he said something, he's not making any changes right now, but he's out there giving some info.
He said, we have prepared for contingencies if things in the situation and circumstances do not improve. And then they brought a dog out. This to me,
good move.
Really a master class in how to live life in general. I've said for years, if you're a marketing exec at a company, you can't figure out how we want to go, or an advertising executive, and you can't figure out how do we want to market our product. Dogs. Simply throw dogs in. You could make one of the best 30-second Super Bowl ads of all time purely by just throwing dogs into the equation.
Completely agree.
I think someone did it this last year, and Steve Cohen realized as they brought, I believe it was a veteran service puppy, into the room with the media and watched them all melt after this. Yeah. You were immediately going to take everyone's eyes off the ball that is the failure of your season and put it on that puppy, chestnut checkers.
It's a great move. It's an absolutely great move for a team that, by the way, as bad as they are, they're not last. Washington Nationals are last in the East right now. But last year, the Mets, after 80 games, I think were around 50-30.
Yeah.
Right in that area there. Now they're 36-44, 17 back. So not going well. So, if this keeps going, there'll obviously be some changes. But to your point, bringing a dog out in anything softens the situation.
Absolutely. So they're not alone, too. I was just looking at the screen as you have it pulled up right there. The Padres that spent more money than God on every superstar imaginable, sitting there under 500.
Yep.
Also in the NL West. So life's not been sweet for big spenders so far this Major League Baseball season. Hopefully get a chance to talk to our buddy Jared Carrabis over on Baseball is Dead sometime next week. Get a little re-up into everything that's been going on in Major League Baseball as we get towards the middle of the summer. We have now officially waved goodbye to NBA season.
Yes, we have.
We've got NBA free agency that opened up, I believe, yesterday.
No, it opens up tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
James Harden has to make his decision today. Hockey's also over. That draft went on as well that we'll chat about.
We will get to that. So plenty to catch up with Jared as we get towards the middle of this. But coming up next, we do want to sit down and play you our interview, our visit with Notre Dame star quarterback Sam Hartman as we walk through his career, what the Irish can expect in this upcoming season, what went into this decision, and a little bit about his background and how he was raised that's particularly relevant to everyone on this show. Stick with us here. Sam Hartman, Notre Dame's QB1, next on Gojo. All right, we're very excited. We are out here in a building I just learned the name of, the Irish Athletic Complex on the indoor here.
I didn't know that either. I just call it the indoor facility.
I got a text from Katie Lonergan, who's the wonderful sports information director here, saying where we were going to come do this interview, and I had to try and play it cool like I knew exactly where we were going, only to be guided to a different spot when I got here today. But the location is less important than who we're with. Very excited to sit down with current Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman. Sam, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. I appreciate you guys having me. And yeah, the IAC.
Did you know it?
I learned it probably like a month ago when they were sending out but they were, we're going to be in the IAC. And I'm like, like, oh, the ice. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll see you guys there.
Is it a matter of acting like you know and then just following people till you get there?
100%. You just kind of play tag along, and you're trying to be a leader, but then you're like, okay, yeah, let's go, guys. All right, now we're going. All right.
I mean, what's that been like? Because you're in your 6th year in college football, and in some ways, it's almost like being a freshman again, I imagine.
No, for sure. And that was kind of the joke of the spring was, coming out, I felt it's my 6th spring. Oh, it's going to be a piece of cake. Like, everything's going to roll smooth. And then you're like, oh, my goodness. I feel like a little kid out here because you're running. You go through 5 years, like it's the same spring ball. What hash you're running to for Indy, what hash you're running to for RVA, everywhere on the field, the exact number when you start 7-on-7, like you're almost running before everyone else is because you've been doing it for so long. And you come here and you're kind of like a deer in headlights.
Yeah, I mean, what was that like for you? You get ready and make the decision to come over here, and I guess first starting there from the beginning and going forward. You spend 5 years at Wake Forest. You set a whole bunch of ACC records. You've got an unbelievable career there at a place where you stuck it out through some early adversity. What made this the right time to finally make a move for you?
I think I knew I wasn't ever going to go back, and it was nothing to do with Wake. It was nothing to do with the offense. It was nothing to do with anyone there. I have the utmost respect for Wake Forest and everything that they stuck with me through a lot of, bad play, good play, everything in between. And I had a lot of great memories, great friends through that whole process. Coach Clausen, I'm forever indebted to. He was the reason I stayed. When I was a sophomore and lost a job, he pulled me aside and talked me through the entire process of what he expected from me from here on out. And then I think the decision was NFL or go back to school and, try and play at a place like this and experience something that you kind of only dream of. I was a low-level recruit and play at a place like this and the opportunity that they were, given to me. And, I just was hoping to take the most of it. And I think the biggest thing, and it's been a while and it's unbelievably hot in the IC. I think you can feel it. I'm start sweating here.
Yeah.
Like I'm nervous, no, but it's just hot. I might take my sweatshirt off. But I think another thing was I've seen so many guys in college go to the NFL and never play football again. And I thought one of the best ways to play again was go to college, stay in college, go back and try and play one more year. And it wasn't guaranteed. I was coming in to compete. I knew that, but felt really good about that opportunity. And so that's a really big part of it.
Before we get to what can happen here and what it can do for you going forward, let's go back. You mentioned you weren't highly recruited yet. Here you are as one of, I think at that point, 5 true freshman quarterbacks, and you're starting from day one. So take us back. It's a few years now. Take us back to that and just that feeling of this 18-year-old, and all of a sudden you're stepping on the field starting.
I think it was just luck, part of it. Like part of it was just the way it went and the luck of the draw. Those last 3 years, I really hang my hat on the fact that I kind of understood that as a quarterback, everybody's counting on you. And it's not just, I got to show up and play. It's you got to show up and be a leader. You got to execute. You got to understand what everyone's doing, when everyone's doing it, and know that the person who's opening that gate for you to walk into the game 3 hours before counts on you.
It's interesting. In today's world, we see guys transferring pretty quickly, and they get knocked sometimes. They get knocked sometimes for doing that, of saying, stay, stay and handle the competition. But I know Mike and I have always been, hey, you go where you think your opportunity is going to be. So you mentioned that. So freshman year you start, you get hurt at the end of it, and then sophomore year you're a backup. Mm-hmm. How close were you, if you were, to maybe jumping in the portal at that point?
I mean, I think I was there. It was a lot of thought. I think I knew I wasn't going to do it during the year. I felt like, I was like somebody, injuries can happen. Somebody could go down. I think I was more just disappointed. I think it was a lot of self-reflection that involved that I really didn't understand at the time. It took me a while to kind of look back and realize. And when I talk to young guys about, hey, how do you handle competition? How do you handle, really competing? Like when me and Tyler competed in the fall or the spring. And I think it helped me there. And it also helped each other. Like I think it's very easy to just look at the other person and wonder, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Are they doing more than me? Are they doing less than me? Instead of just being like, all right, I have these X, Y, and Z I got to complete. And if I do that, I'll be ready to go. It doesn't matter what the other person's doing. I can't control it. I felt like I just focused too much on what the other person was doing, how they were being received by the team, and didn't really focus on myself. And I played horribly in my 2019 spring. I was coming back from a broken leg, but that really had it was just more like I was so focused on everything else that I wasn't focused on myself. And basically from week 1 to 5, I was a non-factor. I was checked out. I was, just kind of trying to really just get by and then figure out what I was going to do by the end of the year. And so I was very selfish. And, Coach Clausen brought me aside one of the days. We just went and grabbed lunch up in Ronaldo Gardens. Never forget it. And it's this little pathway you walk. And, the whole time I'm thinking, woe is me. Like, they don't like, I played as a freshman. I can do this. And I couldn't. I wasn't ready. I wasn't big enough. I wasn't strong enough. I didn't know the offense well enough at that point to lead a team to do what we wanted to do. And he kind of just illustrated to me that nothing changes in your goals in your life that you're not starting as a sophomore. I still at that point would have had, 5-6 years. But at that point, it was still going to be, I would still have the 3 years because they were going to redshirt me, and they did an incredible job with that. I wouldn't be here if because most schools don't handle that. It was that 4-game rule. And they, there was times where they could have just thrown me in for a play and it would have completely screwed up my redshirt rule. And so, again, forever grateful for that. And that conversation that we had led to me the next week. Our starter went down halfway through the game. We went in. We ended up losing, but played. I wouldn't have played as well as I played. And then, I ended up playing 3 more games after that and had to play the week after against Florida State. We won that. And that was the first time we had beaten Florida State and beat them the next 3 years. Like, bragging about that.
There you go.
And so that was something that I took pride in. And really to wrap it up is at the end of the year, we always did senior talks. And I know you guys probably remember your senior talks and the ones that really stuck with you, the guys that you kind of looked up to. And I had a running back, Cade Carney, I played with in high school that went to Wake. So we got to play 3 years together from his senior year and my sophomore year. And then his last 2 years we played together. And he just talked about commitment and talked about what it meant to him to play with the guys and play with the guy, to his right, to his left, and everyone, from the the walk-on freshman to the 6-year senior, right? It's all he put it in perspective of just how valuable commitment is, and I took that to heart, and I said I committed to Wake for 4 years, and I'm going to give him 4. I ended up giving him 5, and that was kind of where my peace lied when I made a decision to go to a different school, because I knew that in those 5 years I gave everything I could, and again they luckily accepted me and kept me around for that long.
What was that moment like, or take us through the moment of when? Was it Coach Parker? Was it Coach Freeman who said you're the guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the spring game went really well, and I felt really really pleased, and I feel like there it kind of turned. I think where I played well, and it kind of felt like you walk through the locker room, and guys are looking at you a little bit differently, and I think that it was enough time where people realize who I am, what I do, how I operate, and I still try and treat it as I'm still competing, and but it's a surreal moment. I think you like hearing it come out of your guy's mouth. It's always like a kind of like, okay, this is real deal, and it's something that I take pride in, something that I try and every single day prove myself to the coaches, prove myself to my teammates, prove myself to whoever needs to be proven to, but mostly myself, that I'm the guy for this job, and I'm going to do everything that it kind of takes to get to that point.
It's definitely stood out. So it's the road that got you here to this, and now you get ready to walk forward, and you're now part of the face of this program along with Coach Freeman, who's going into his 2nd year. For you had Coach Clausen for so long. What stuck out about Marcus Freeman through the early going of being coached by him?
I think just, again, it's always cool to be around people who are consistent. Consistency is key, I think, in life and everything you do. Like, you can't be this rah-rah and then a low guy, or you can't be a low guy and then become a rah-rah guy, because guys see right through it. And there's times your heart rate's got to spike, and there's times where you got to cool yourself down. But I think that he does a good job at just being the same guy, right? He's, again, you guys see him as Coach Freeman, one of the best looking head coaches in college football type deal, right? He's always put, white shoes, well dressed, great smile. And he's just coached us. And, I think our relationship grows every day. And he's awesome about just having an open door policy where you see him around. And again, I've heard of schools where, it's not like that. And I think I'm really grateful for is I can just go in whenever and say, hey, coach, I got a problem with this. Hey, coach, I like this. I don't like this. And, again, sometimes he's like, well, yeah, that's how it's going to be. And then, a lot of the times we work through it, and it's just been cool. I know he's got all his kids, and the way he handles that, and again the social pressure that he has of being the Notre Dame head coach. Like, I think those two positions, my position, his position, are the two positions where it's very hard to find people that relate to it. I think that for him and I, we have a kind of a unique situation where we both kind of get that every single day you're having like thousands to sometimes millions of people looking at you, judging you, and we can relate to that on a really high level.
Well, quite honestly, you guys are the best quarterback head coach duo in college football. We brought that up.
Oh, when it comes to best looking?
Best looking,
I was
yes.
going to say, are you aware, because you mentioned that with Marcus, are you aware of all the online thirst that you get from this fan
unreal.
base?
Yeah.
I try and avoid it. Yeah,
I know you've got a wonderful girlfriend from your time at Wake Forest, a great soccer player, all that,
so
but
let's just say
it's a lot of noise out there in the Notre Dame community.
Along those lines, then, because we have talked about how you guys are the best looking head coach quarterback duo in the country, and we both have beards. So what's the secret to the beard? You got product you put in the beard?
Good genetics. I don't know. I mean, I sometimes will get it trimmed up or cleaned up, but some days it looks really good, some days it doesn't, and I think I'm going to roll with it.
Well, I think it goes all the way back to you had those pictures that basically look Peaky Blinders-esque before. What was the story behind that? Was that a photo shoot that Wake Forest did with you, and you just happened to choose the hat?
We went down. We did like the ACC Media Day, and so the first year I kind of kept it pretty simple. Did like an all gray suit, and then going to that year I fell in love with Peaky Blinders, the entire show. Thomas Shelby,
great show.
My mom just named our new dog a Great Dane, and I think my mom will be watching. She is watching. She will be watching. She. Big fan, by the way. Shout out moms all out there, but my mom's the best. I love you, Mom. And she named her the dog Polly from.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's
they're
awesome.
all in, and so it was just kind of like one of those deals where, I really enjoyed the show. Thought it would be a cool look to try and pull off, and then eventually it kind of was one of those deals where I kind of played off it when I got hurt, of him kind of being close to his death and then surviving it. So it kind of worked out.
There we go. Art imitating life.
Exactly. So you mentioned Marcus and what he goes through as the head coach of Notre Dame. But as you're going to find out, many people love Notre Dame and many people hate Notre Dame. But Notre Dame always gets talked about. We always compare it like with the Yankees or the Lakers and the Cowboys as that kind of America thing. So even though you haven't played in a game yet, you're the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. What has that been like out in the public life?
I mean, it's unique. It's different. You have people outside of the locker room. You have, but I know before practices, there's media out there, and for some schools that's normal. For me, it was new. I mean, I think it's always the same. You treat everything like somebody's watching, and life is pretty easy. I think the thing that can happen is if you just get caught up in, either reading it too much or reading none of it, you gotta know that what's out there and how it's being handled, and what you do every single day can basically make or break your image. And it sometimes gets rough, but again, like I kind of like the analogy that if your 12-year-old self, you could go talk to him, you tell him what you're doing at this point in your life, and he'd love to be signing autographs, love to be taking pictures wherever he goes, love to not really be able to go out in public and not be recognized. So it's all, a give and take relationship. But again, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I know at points in my life I've, been like, oh, I got to do this or but again, there's millions of people that would love to be in this situation. And again, trying to keep that perspective, and it's easy at being old. I know that younger me wouldn't have had that insight, and so that's the one positive.
I've seen throughout this, and I know for Marcus when he came in, he said he solicited a lot of advice from old mentors of his, coaches that he had been around here. I've been with you. You got to interact with Jimmy Clausen a little bit along the road here at our event over the weekend. Brady Quinn was there, Dane Chris, my old roommate here. Were there any of those guys, whether it was old quarterbacks from around here or mentors in your life, that you kind of reached out to try and pick the brain on what this experience in particular is like?
Yeah, I think it all kind of aligns that, like what you guys kind of said, that there's just there's nothing like it. And I think that there's going to be a lot of hate and there's going to be a lot of love. And it kind of relies on this fact of just staying consistent to who you are. I think there's, Jimmy Clausen kind of was talking about it. Just you have no idea how big it can get, but also how fast it can go away. And I think that was a pretty impactful statement of just understanding that, like, it's, they're going to be cheering you praise when you win. And, if, you play bad or whatever, then they're going to be the same people that aren't, cheering you praise very much. And again, that kind of goes without, like, even at Wake, it was like that. Some of it was more on social media. I'm sure here, because there's more people, it'll be probably in your face and in person. And so I think that it's just, again, every day, knowing what I have to do, working my routine, and being comfortable in the fact that I'm doing enough personally, and then everyone else around me believes in me, trusts in me, and I trust in them, and we just continue to roll.
So we've gone all this way, and we wanted to build up probably the most important question. Is it true that your sports knowledge comes from your mother watching Mike and Mike?
It is. Everything. Yeah, growing up in the morning, we were in the kitchen. I'd sit on the high chairs eating breakfast, and Mike and Mike would be on without fail. And I kid you not, my mom cried more than I've ever seen her cry when that show ended. So I do appreciate the memories, the growing up, because, like, my mom watched you probably be tearing up that I'm even this close to you. I kid you not. Like, you are a legend in our household. So
did you say in your high chair?
Like
at the bar stool.
Oh,
like
I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm not that old and you're not that young. I was like, hold on.
I always joke that you're the last generation of kids that were, like, force-fed Mike and Mike when they were growing up. Like, you all had that on in the car right now, so you had really no choice. Kind of like I did. I always joke, I had it on in the car because Mom was going to let us listen to anything else. So you managed to survive it somehow and still end up well-adjusted.
That's great.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, Sam, we appreciate all the time here, man. We hope you've enjoyed South Bend. I mean, it's very different than, you're from North Carolina and went to Wake. What's the Midwest adjustment been like for you overall?
The spring was rough. The spring was long and cloudy.
Yeah. The permacloud's an adjustment.
The permacloud, yes.
It was an adjustment, as I was told. The snow boots were worn a lot. And the spring game wasn't the best weather, right? We kind of got that was short end of the stick on that. But no, it's been great. I mean, I think, my mom's from Michigan, so kind of knew. She kind of was telling me, hey, you realize where you're headed. And my dad hasn't been up here for many reasons, being because it's so cold. So, his first time will be a game, so he'll get the great experience of just seeing what this place is like. And I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to, is that first game. Because everybody, I was walking out of our last stadium lift with Coach Bayless, and we were just walking through the tunnel. And for me, it's like I think a lot of guys on this team, it's like a kid in a candy shop. It's the first that no matter how many times you do it, there's just something about that seeing the championship banners and touching the sign. And I think it's he was just saying, you have no idea till you come out here on a night game at 7:00 and the place is just rocking. And so I'm that's gives me goosebumps thinking about it. And, like, I'm most probably excited for that first Saturday night.
Will you lobby to have the first play be a pass?
I think we'll lobby for all the plays to be passed.
There we go. Spoken like a true quarterback.
Very true.
Sam, we appreciate it all the time, man.
Appreciate
Best of luck with everything this year. We'll be rooting for you.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Go Irish.
I've only just now stopped sweating after that interview. It was hot in there for everybody, and I'm sure for Notre Dame fans as much as anything. But a very promising offseason that should lead to a very interesting season for Notre Dame. Talked a lot about their win totals in recent days, and that 8.5, 9 number going to be very interesting for the Irish with Sam at the helm. All right, Brandon, time to bring this thing home, land the plane as we always do around here. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out on DraftKings YouTube. Let us know more of what you want to hear. We always end this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off the day, send you on your merry way. And Brandon, we had the NHL draft happen last night. No surprise to anybody. Connor's in the NHL, incredibly hot right now, as we had Connor McDavid taking home MVP honors the other day, and now Conner Bedard goes number 1 overall in a way that was not surprising. I would say, Brandon, just as much as it seemed like a foregone conclusion for some time that Victor Wembanyama was going to go number 1 overall, it was the Big Vic sweepstakes in the NBA. it was the Conner Bedard sweepstakes in the NFL. He really is seen as that next generational talent and prospect that we've had since Connor McDavid. The 17-year-old was the pride and joy of this upcoming draft. Chicago hit the jackpot with this. They only had the third best odds to get the number 1 overall pick at about 11.5%. And so now they get a player who was the first 15-year-old granted exceptional status by the Western Hockey League. He was the inaugural IIHF Male Player of the Year. He led Canada to a gold medal in World Juniors. And just in general, seems like he's got plenty of that dog in him. And so for Chicago and the Blackhawks, who obviously went through an incredible stretch where they were winning Stanley Cups basically every other year, had now fallen on hard times. And Brandon, we've already kind of seen that similar bump in season tickets and all the things and metrics we use that basically show you everybody is pretty excited about this going on. Now, there are people who understandably look at the situation with all of the impropriety that had gone on in that Blackhawks organization and how they weren't penalized and how this was allowed to happen at all and say that it probably shouldn't have been that way. But the bottom line is now they are netted what is expected to be one of the best young hockey players in the NHL for quite some time.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about them building back so soon. I feel like those championship runs were a little bit too recent in my memory. I would like them to have to wait a little bit longer like the Spurs had to before they got Big Vic in the draft, and now they're going to be rebuilding their franchise behind him. But the Blackhawks in Chicago, they felt like they got a little too braggadocious too quickly for me. Maybe it's just my Red Wings Detroit fandom coming out here, but I didn't like how Blackhawks fans in Chicago got a chance to really brag so much during that run.
So they had 3 cups in 6 years that ended in 2015, which is one of those things. I'm with you. 2015 in my brain will always seem way more recent than it actually is, but that's because I'm having trouble accepting the fact that the sands of time keep on going. So, Brandon, let's get to that. More gambling announcements for punishments and penalties in the NFL. And this one's sort of wild. So according to ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter, a handful of players, including Colts cornerback and kick returner Isaiah Rodgers, are expected to receive season-long suspensions this week for violating the NFL's policy on gambling. Rodgers is the subject of a league investigation into possible violations of their gambling policy that includes bets placed on Colts games. Now, Rodgers has acknowledged the situation on social media earlier this month and said he takes full responsibility. But Brandon, this one's a wild one because we've heard of some wild parlays. We've heard of guys that have been suspended for half the season for gambling in the wrong place, gambling in the team facility and on team property. And we've now got the NFL sort of reinforcing their key rules when it comes to gambling, which is pretty simply, don't bet on the NFL. Don't gamble at your team facility while traveling for a road game or staying at a team hotel. Don't have someone bet for you. Don't share team inside info. Don't enter a sports book during the NFL playing season. And don't play daily fantasy. Pretty easy rules to follow. But Brandon, if it's true that Isaiah Rodgers was actually betting on the Colts, that's the most blown through stop sign and easiest marker to see that someone would have gotten popped for so long. That's some wild stuff.
And a very dangerous gambling habit to bet on a 4-12 football team if you're on it or not. I feel like the heavy-handed, like the Patriots of one year, the favorites betting is nasty. The underdogs betting is delusional, but obviously betting while you're on the team alone is just bad business to be in.
That's a great point. Obviously, common sense. And again, we're very pro player on this podcast and on this show, but man, it's pretty easy for everyone involved to understand players betting on their own teams probably going to be a no-no, and like an easy one, no matter what the gambling laws around you look like, that's been pretty consistent as a through line through the course of human history with sports. You don't want players betting on their team with the information that they got. Nobody wins with that. Easy rule to follow that somehow Isaiah Rodgers, we can't excuse that away even with all the gambling money flooding in. But you're right, Brandon. We probably need to know which way he was betting on this because like you said, if you've got a really good team or a really bad team, it can be pretty easy to operate this. But all of a sudden, if you're on the bad team and you're betting your bad team to lose, those are things that we're probably going to have a little more of an issue with than if you were betting, for everyone to win. It's like being at the craps table and betting the do not pass line here. You don't want to be the guy actively subverting the effort that's going on there. So the important questions that need to be asked in this process. But again, as the NFL is now going to go around and you've got all this mandatory training for rookies that's going to pop up, it again just goes back to, there are a lot of things that are difficult, inconsistent, and hypocritical about the way the NFL does business with players versus coaches and front office members and owners that we can rightly point out. And I understand for some people looking at all the gambling money, hell, we're on a DraftKings podcast right now. I get how this sounds, but again, it still seems pretty commonsensical to me that you don't want players betting on their team. You don't want players betting on their sport. Now, the notion of a right place and a wrong place to bet, you can't bet at the team facility, even if it's on a sport outside of yours, someone's still going to have to explain to me why that's a thing that matters, because I don't understand that. The rest of this stuff makes a fair amount of sense. And so just don't do it, because now the NFL has sent a message over and over and over again. You will get popped. You will miss significant time, and none of these people are good enough at gambling to cover the losses of their salary during the course of a 17-week NFL season. Brandon, let's get to the third. So, shout out to my friend and former colleague, Alyssa Lang, who does a great job over at the SEC Network and was hosting radio on Sirius XM this morning as the podcast was going on with Dari Noka. And she texts me out of nowhere. Do you think you could emergency land a commercial plane with only air traffic control walking you through it? And Brandon, apparently this is some trend going around on TikTok that highlights the overwhelming confidence of men everywhere to navigate through this situation. I want to know what your answer is, Brandon. My knee-jerk reaction was, I believe that I would be able to rise to the occasion. Because at that point, you've got your life and the lives of everyone else on the plane in your hand. And while I don't think it would be pretty, as we've established, most planes now, for the most part, fly themselves. So it's really just worried about the landing. Like we said, it wouldn't be pretty. We would probably smack the ground pretty hard. There were probably people walking out of there a little bit banged up and bruised. But I think we're going to live because, again, fight or flight instinct. I am going to fight the flight and try and get us on the ground because I really want to live. And I feel like if I've got an experienced pilot in my ear, I've played enough video games to rise to the occasion with my heart pounding. What about you?
You know what? That is a fall to the level of your training moment for you when it comes to video games and taking direction and being an offensive lineman. Yeah. And you also, listen, you come in and out of break forever since we've been doing this podcast. You land the plane very, very well. Me, on the other hand, I was going to say I possibly could do it, but when I found out all men are saying that they possibly could, I had to go to what really in my deep dark down inside. I feel like I have a better chance timing up a jump out of a plane to land and roll and kind of get to my feet than landing the entire plane for everyone else. Does that make sense? Like, I really do think that I could just kind of, parachute or not, just time up when's a good time to stop, drop, and roll out of an airplane as it falls down to whatever happens.
Boy, all of this just highlights. I saw a Reddit poster the other day said that he feels like he would have somehow survived the submersible excursion, that men are some of the dumbest things walking this earth, and that every prompt like this just reinforces that. That being said, I stand by my words. If you stand by this podcast and think that we did a good job landing the plane, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us that 5-star rating. Check us out on YouTube and DraftKingsNetwork.com. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go. Boom. Money in the bank.